There's a certain point in RPGs where you're like, there's the moment. The moment you've been waiting for where everything just kind of fit together. Or there's a surprising moment that elevated that game to the next level. This is a list of those types of games that you need to finish them to feel a sense of accomplishment, or to see that twist set of scenarios, or just to feel wholesome. Let's begin. The Tales of series seem to be that kind of just fodder food for the genre. They are tried and true, and you kind of know what to expect with all the tropes and such. But what makes Tales of Vesperia stand out is Yuri's character arc and character development throughout the game. I like when we have a fleshed out main character that does grow. I mean, that's the point of a lot of stories, But what I really, really like about this game is they kind of throw a curveball toward the end of this game. You think it's going to end, and then the main boss shows up. And what I like about it is it's not just out of the blue, just craziness, but I think it's pretty expertly well done, and I enjoyed the ending wrap-up. It felt very satisfying, and this entire game just feels like that go on a grand adventure, and it's probably the epitome of that feeling. There might be a few other games, but it's so varied in landscape. It has the open world map traversal, but I come back to, minus the awesome funny skits and the character interactions, and they got a freaking dog with a pipe. You can't go wrong. But I come back to the ending of Yuri's story and that epic final fight and how it all gets resolved. Definitely check out Tales of Vesperia.
Cast aside your fears and give it everything you've got!
Everyone is talking about Ys 8, but Ys 9 does something absolutely incredible. The mystery. And by golly, there is a moment where you see something and you're like, what the heck is going on? And that intrigued me all the way through. And the best part is, it's a very solid action RPG. On top of having an amazing traversal feeling and mechanics, the movesets you use to explore this big city and also get out to the land part. Well, we were kind of worried that, you weren't going to traverse outside the city. You do. But the main point is the reasons for what's happening was intriguing, and I didn't really feel like I got that from other Ys games. So the mystery kind of just drove the whole thing. I don't believe this next part is a spoiler. Very early on in the game, you realize that there's two Adels. Two main characters. What the heck is going on? The whole time I was playing this game, I was like, I don't understand it. Why does it keep jumping around? I think the payoff is worth it. I think it's clever. And just go play some Ys games. You're going to have a freaking blast, because this is a certified worth your time game.
You must survive this by any means necessary.
I think this is one of the best examples of a build-up to a final boss fight that really feels epic. Of course, we have an amazing soundtrack to boost that experience, an excellent location, the stakes are high, but it all comes with this concept of what the game is actually about. Lost Odyssey follows a cast of characters that are immortal, and then some that are not. And the loss of memories and the questions that you have about being an immortal being and being used in these, never-ending conflicts of countries invading one another. But even better is the reason for why these people are immortal. And that reveal towards the end of the game is fantastic. And on your way to getting to the end of that game, this is basically an alternate universe of what would happen if Final Fantasy XIII was different. This feels like a Final Fantasy game. The music sounds like a Final Fantasy game, because what do you know? A lot of Final Fantasy creators worked on this game. So it's going to feel familiar, some excellent characters, and you even have these short stories that you can find that are just so beautifully written. So this game just has so much different content with I think a really cool cast of characters that definitely show growth. Really like the main character, as well as my little sidekick, womanizing kind of person, Jansen, who's a very funny, interesting mage as the story prolongs. But it's all about that culmination. I feel like when you get to that final fight, you're ready for it.
We were once a nation of hope.
I've only played vanilla version of Final Fantasy 15 when it originally released, but the one thing I'm going to say to make you play this game and finish it, which is what this list is all about, is I think this has probably the best Final Fantasy villain out of every single game. And I know that is a ridiculously high bar to set. It could go, there is definitely a top 3 in there, but I could really see this antagonist sliding at number 1 on certain days of the week. So that is a high bar to set. But obviously right there, that means it's worth your time. Go in with open expectations. I think the summons you find are extraordinarily epic. That's coming even post Final Fantasy 16 here. And it's about camaraderie, that platonic, awesome relationships. There's a lot of good twists in this. I'm sure they've changed stuff that I liked from the original one. There's a certain point in this game where something changes in the world, and before that, it is one of my favorite scenes in a Final Fantasy series. It is so well acted, and it's probably because of that antagonist. There's actually a good game in this Final Fantasy 15, so give it a shot, make your own opinion, and honestly, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It had to be on the list. Come on. When we're talking about longer RPGs, games that you should finish, of course a Persona game is going to be on the list. And of course, the longest one out there, Persona 5. Now, as you'll notice, I said Persona 5 and not Royal. I have not played Royal. Comment down below if you think that one is worth the extra time and revisiting this game as a whole again. But why should you play Persona 5? Why should you finish that very, very long game? It's just about that feeling. There's the mystery side of things, but it's just that camaraderie with your characters, your classmates. To me, this is just like the perfect comfort food. I can do excellent turn-based combat, or I can, explore Tokyo and just hang out with my friends, my digital friends. All the while exploring pretty interesting dungeon designs, very different from the previous games. And there is such a wealth of accomplishment when you make it through a palace and when you finish and roll credits on this game, because I think it has one of the best feel-good endings out there. My gosh, was I just grinning. There's a reason this game is rated so highly. Take your time with it. It's a great game to just play in chunks because of how it's paced. I know I told you to finish these games, but take your time with this one. Seriously, it'll be there. Be ready for you. Like that good old friend when you just call them up out of the blue, send them a message. They're right there. The travesty that surrounds this game is that the localization is pretty rough. But I find this to have one of the best battle systems. I love how the character upgrades and you can kind of fiddle with their skill points and extra upgrades. Plus, each of the characters that you get throughout this game feel distinct, and I like their use of tactics in the game. And I think for the time, this has a lot of quality of life features. You can kind of cancel random encounters if you feel like it. This game is pretty easy throughout. You definitely hit a spike of a difficulty wall a little bit later on. But I think towards the end, there's enough mystery of what's going on and how the main character is involved in everything. There's definitely a big cliffhanger moment, which is really cool. And the scene at the very beginning of the game finally gets answered much, much later. And I like when games do that. They plant that seed. You're like, oh, I wonder if they're ever going to get back to that. They generally do, and this game does a good job of that. And the one thing I will say, besides one area in the game, I feel like there's this constant, like, all right, I'm going here, and all the way through, you're just making your way through the story, and it feels like you are a part of this resistance team ready to tackle the world's problems. And by the end, when I'm fighting this final boss, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. I feel satisfied. And I hope you do too, so you should get around, play this game, and give Wild Arms, the series as a whole, some more love. There's that saying that the journey is more important than the ending, and I think that this is one of those games that really features that. But I do like the conclusion, even though they do the boss swap right at the very end. And you know what I'm talking about, but I have heard some theories out there about some connections, which I have to dive in a little bit deeper to see if that would make this ending final boss much more epic. But the character development, the question of existing and what is the purpose of life are those giant questions are so artfully done in this Final Fantasy adventure. And what I really like is this does feel like it harkens back to the medieval Final Fantasies of before, and it really does feel like a celebration of everything that had come before this game. But it's those big questions so wonderfully explored through these characters that will just make you want to keep going through the game. Plus that Kuja theme song, whoo, it's fire.
Arbiter of every soul.
Now, when I think about games dealing with choices and having them affect the storyline, Fire Emblem Three Houses is a masterpiece in this regard. The amount of changes from the 2 routes that I've played are astounding. Yes, you've got great strategy RPG gameplay, but most of all, you have this plethora of characters to get to know and grow, and then big events happen, and factions are made, alliances are formed, alliances are broken, and it takes a long time to get to the conclusion, but my gosh, the last missions on both routes that I've done, blue and red, have been epic. They feel incredible just being there in the last missions, the build-up and there's just so much character interactions going on, and you don't want to kill these other characters, but you have to make a choice. And I know a lot of people do not play strategy RPGs for the story. That's more of a backseat because you focus on the moment-to-moment gameplay, which I do not disparage that. I think this game does have excellent gameplay. I'm new to the strategy RPG genre, but I fell in love with it. But the characters and the broad storytelling and how everything gets affected, that's the winner. And that's why you should finish Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Listen to me. We are not giving up, no matter what happens.
I must protect.
Oh my gosh, do I love this game. And there's something about Tales games that are so divisive. If you like one, you generally don't like others. This was not my first Tales game, and I really like how this is about friends that have grown apart and gone to different places. You start off basically children, which is really cool. I really like this aspect because it feels a little, not as serious, and where imagination could just take you anywhere because you're a kid. And I like that we get a time skip and things have changed, and it all circles back to the people that these 4 characters meet. Well, 3 characters meet this other 4th character, and it's all about that in the interaction. And what I really like towards the end of the game, you go to a whole different area. It's super interesting. The main antagonist, there's kind of 2 of them in this game, and I really like what they did with one of them because it's just kind of this interesting question about how a person is raised, how it affects the outcome. That age-old question, nature versus nurture, and it really plays on the end of this game. I really like the idea of putting characters that were close to one another at a different time in their life and seeing where they've come out on the other end, and see how these changed friends are going to interact with each other now. Where are they going to side? Where their allegiances side? And it's pretty interesting. Definitely give it a shot. And the nice part is there's this extra epilogue ending that takes a little while too that you have after you roll credits. So if you want more Tales of Grace's F, there you go. I've put this game on many lists, and the thing I keep coming back to is this game does every single sci-fi trope you can think of, but it works somehow. I don't know how they did it. They are masterminds of interweaving stories and plot twists. Somehow this game has so many different stories going on and characters that interact with each other, and you don't get spoiled, but then you hear something that makes you really think like, oh wait, how does that work when I know this information? It's a masterpiece. I'm not going to say much more, but I think the ending is spectacular. All the mysteries get wrapped up, and oh my gosh, I didn't see half the stuff coming. Oh, it's so freaking good. Do yourself a favor, invest the time in this RTS visual novel side-scrolling adventure game. It is absolutely worth your time, and beautiful artwork coming from the people over at Vanillaware. I actually had to think really hard on putting this game on the list because, one, this suffers a little bit from translation quality, we'll call it. And also, the game is slow. Very, very plodding and slow. The combat takes forever, even though I really like the additions combat that's in the game. But let me tell you, that third disc, insane. The amount of mysteries that start getting revealed, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I probably should have seen at least one of them coming, but they did a switcheroo on me, and I loved it. The freaking last boss in this game is a pain in the booty, but honestly, even though it's a slog, maybe I would recommend you to emulate this so you can get, increase the speed of the game and maybe turn off random encounters. But man, the diverse locations and this kind of epicness of the story, there's just a lot that comes to head at the finale of this game, right? Especially, like I said, right at the end of Disc 3 and then Disc 4, you're just ready to go. You're ready to do it. It's got some age quality problems and it has some design choices that aren't the best, but I honestly still think it's very much worth playing and seeing those twists and experiencing this story. I'm happy I finally got around to finishing this game. My love for Xenoblade will never stop, but the reason Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is on this list is because I think it has one of the best individual character endings of probably any RPG.
That's the way of
I mean, that could change for tomorrow, but honestly, I'm so satisfied with the ending of this game. It's incredible. Every character moment there, I'm like, yes, that's what I want. I want this, I want that. And this is coming from somebody who didn't actually enjoy the final fight that much, but after you beat the final enemy, and the best part is there are so many awesome points before you reach the ending. There's so many scenes, the emotional range of some of these voice actors and the characters themselves that they put oh my gosh, this world's so bleak and dark, and it's beautiful when you run around in it. This is a must-play Nintendo Switch game, and you definitely have to see the end because, man, will you feel the emotions. And there you have it. I hope you found a game on this list that you're like, oh yeah, maybe I should get back to that one. Or, oh, wow, I've never even played that game. That sounds amazing. So now, like the best thing in life, you have options. Go capitalize on them.